You think strength is how loud you can shout or how hard you can hit, but the real strength, the kind that commands respect the second you walk in a room, comes from the discipline to stay in control when everything inside you is screaming to react. Most people crumble under pressure. They show every emotion like a billboard. They rage when they're frustrated, break down when they're scared, lash out when they feel threatened. That's not power. That's weakness on full display. The person who can take all that chaos, all that pain, and still stand tall with a steady voice and calm eyes, that's the one who owns the room. You walk into a storm and don't flinch. People notice. They respect what they don't understand, and nothing is more mysterious than someone who refuses to be controlled by their emotions. They want to know what you know. They want to understand how you keep it all together when they're barely hanging on. But you don't explain it. You live it. You show it. Every time you feel your heart pounding, your fists clenching, your thoughts racing and your breath getting short, that's the battlefield. That's the proving ground. The average person loses the war right there. They explode. They fall apart. They expose their weaknesses to the world like a fresh wound. But you're not average. You keep your chest up, your jaw tight, and your mind locked in. You let the storm rage, but you don't let it inside. People think that showing emotion means you're real, means you're connected. But when it's time to lead, when it's time to command respect, showing too much emotion makes you a liability. You become unpredictable. You become soft. A man who's mastered his emotions is a man who's mastered himself. And the man who's mastered himself is the one everyone else looks to when things go sideways. He becomes the anchor in the chaos. He doesn't need to bark orders or demand loyalty. His presence says enough. His composure makes others feel safe. It makes them feel small in the best way. It makes them want to rise to his level. This kind of control isn't natural. It's built, brick by brick, rep by rep. You train it like a muscle. You don't react when someone disrespects you. You calculate. You don't scream when life punches you in the gut. You absorb the hit, analyze the next move. You don't let your emotions run the show. You feel them, but you don't feed them. You let them burn inside while your face stays stone cold. That's power. That's the kind of power that doesn't need validation. That doesn't need attention. It doesn't need to be loud because it's undeniable. You think you're strong because you can lift heavy or fight hard. Try sitting in silence with rage boiling in your gut and still making the right decision. Try facing humiliation without flinching. Try choosing discipline over ego every time. Try walking through the fire and not letting it show on your face. Most people live their lives like leaves in the wind, getting blown around by every opinion, every rumor, every little storm that rolls through their lives. They react to everything. They give their power away every time they let someone else define who they are or how they should move. They wait for approval, for someone to clap, for someone to tell them they're doing it right. That's weakness. That's how you stay at the bottom. You want to command respect. You control the damn narrative. You don't let anyone else write your story. You write it in blood, sweat, and unbreakable consistency. You don't wait for the world to give you a title. You become so undeniable that they don't have a choice but to acknowledge what you are. That's how leaders operate. That's how warriors are built. They're not concerned with what people think because they already know who they are. You walk into a room and you don't ask for permission to be great. You don't shrink yourself so others feel comfortable. You move with purpose, and that purpose tells people everything they need to know. The second you start worrying about how you're perceived, you've already given the power away. Perception is yours to control. Energy is yours to command. You don't just show up, you show people what it means to show up with presence. When you speak with clarity. When you act with precision. There's no hesitation, no explaining, no apologizing. You know why you're there. You know what you stand for. That confidence isn't arrogance. It's conviction. And that's what separates the respected from the ignored. People can smell uncertainty. They can feel it when you doubt yourself, when you second guess your value, when you play small. That's when they treat you like you don't matter. That's when they walk over you. So you shut that door before it ever opens. You carry yourself like someone who's seen the worst and kept going. Like someone who's been through hell and didn't break. That energy speaks louder than any words you could ever say. And when you walk with that kind of power, people listen differently. They move differently around you. You don't need to yell. You don't need to prove anything. You've already proven it to yourself, and that's the only test that matters. You're either leading the story, or you're just a character in someone else's version of it. And if you're a character, you can be written out at any moment. You take control by setting the tone, by deciding what you allow, by drawing lines and never moving them. People will test you, they'll question you, they'll try to bend you. You don't bend, you reinforce the standard with your actions. You show what you tolerate and what you don't without ever needing to explain yourself. Your boundaries aren't for debate. Your presence isn't up for negotiation. The narrative is yours, and once you understand that, the game changes completely. Most people hide their pain like it's something to be ashamed of, like struggle makes them weak, like suffering is something they have to cover up behind fake smiles and empty words. They want to appear put together, polished, untouched by hardship, as if pretending they have it all figured out will earn them respect. But respect doesn't come from pretending to be untouchable. It comes from being undeniable. It comes from walking through the fire and refusing to fall, from taking hit after hit and showing up anyway. That's what people remember. That's what leaves a mark. You want respect? Then let them see you suffer without breaking. Let them witness the grind, the exhaustion, the setbacks, and let them see that none of it stops you. Everyone wants to look strong, but real strength isn't pretty. It's not filtered. It's raw, bloody, bruised, and loud in its silence. The kind of strength that earns respect isn't measured in trophies or titles. It's measured in scars. Not the kind you show off for pity, but the kind you carry quietly, the kind that tell the story of who you had to become just to survive the battles no one even knew you were fighting. While they're talking about how hard life is, you're out there living it. While they're complaining about how unfair things are, you're out there putting your body, your mind, your soul through war, and not for applause, not for attention, but because it's the only way you know how to live. That's how people start to respect you. Not because you tell them to, because they watch you take more than they ever could and still keep coming. They see you in the gym before the sun comes up, not because someone told you to be there, but because you told yourself there's no other option. They see you working 2 jobs, chasing something bigger, sacrificing sleep, peace, comfort, everything, just to move one step closer to a future no one else believes in. They see you bleeding and grinding and sweating and pushing yourself when it makes no logical sense. And that's when they realize you're different. That's when they stop seeing you as one of them and start seeing you as something more. Not because you say you are, but because you've proved it through suffering. You don't hide your wounds. You don't dress them up or cover them with excuses. You wear them like armor. You wear them like proof that pain can be fuel, that adversity can be your foundation. You take the worst moments of your life and you build from them, stack them like bricks, and turn them into a fortress. And when people see that, when they realize you're not just surviving pain, you're using it, they have no choice but to respect you. They see you walk through what would destroy them and still keep your head up, and something inside them shifts. They don't see weakness in your struggle. They see power in your refusal to fold. Most people are waiting for someone to push them, to motivate them, to drag them across the finish line when things get hard. They want a coach, a friend, a cheerleader, someone to hold their hand and remind them what they're capable of. But the truth is, no one is coming. No one cares enough to wake you up at 4 a.m. No one's going to force you to stay disciplined when you're tired, when you're hurting, when the world feels like it's collapsing on top of you. That's the separation. That's where respect is earned. When you become the person who demands more from yourself than anyone else could ever ask. When your internal standard is so high, so brutal, so unrelenting that people start to look at you like you're not even human. The reason most people never become who they're meant to be is because they set their bar based on what others expect. They train just hard enough to fit in. They work just hard enough to not get fired. They study just enough to pass. They live their lives in this gray area of average, and they convince themselves it's good enough. But it's not good enough for you. You want to be respected, not liked. You want to be followed, not pitied. And that kind of presence is built in the shadows, far from comfort, far from applause. You don't need someone yelling in your ear to go harder. You do it because your standards don't allow anything less. You wake up before the alarm. You put in extra reps when no one's watching. You stay late when everyone else is already home. Not for recognition, not for praise, but because your identity is built on showing up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when it feels pointless. That's where your power comes from, and people feel that. They see it in the way you walk, in the way you speak, in the way you handle adversity like it's just another training session. You become the standard. You become the example. Not because you said you would, but because your actions speak it every single day. You don't complain when the pressure rises. You thrive under it. You ask for more. You seek it out. You want the challenge because you know that the harder the path, the fewer the people who can walk it. And the fewer the people who can walk it, the more respect is earned when you make it through. You don't flinch at the idea of pain. You invite it in, make it part of the routine. You don't let weakness live in your mind, because your standards won't tolerate it. Everything in your life is a reflection of what you demand from yourself. Your habits, your health, your discipline, your focus. It's all tied to the level you hold yourself to when no one else is looking. And people start to realize that you're not like them. They see that while they were waiting for motivation, you were out building discipline. While they were making excuses, you were raising your standards again and again. And you weren't doing it for attention or applause.